called rebuilding. And so it set me up very well. It set me up very well. When Sister talked about being ready to walk in the right shoes and then giving yourself, it set me up very well because I myself know about the wrong shoes. And I know about not being prepared for where God has to take you because you're so bogged down with everything else that everyone else has said about you. And so I'm a native of St. Simon Island. Grew right up, well, I didn't grow up. I was actually born here in Brunswick, but I stayed on Fort Frederica until I was 5 years old. And thank God that my great uncle had the ability and the foresight to put something inside me at an early age. And I remember before Emmeline and Hessen took over there on the causeway where you could walk and you could pick up the oysters and you could eat and you could take in what God has given us. And that was just the plain things, the sun, the ocean. And I remember as a young girl him using his knife and cracking them open and letting us eat it right there. And somehow the life and the spirit and the gifts that God has to give us were embedded in here. So 2 years later, when I was snatched off the bus 2 stops from home, and 14 years would go by before I would ever find my way back to my family and the people who loved me. I believe it was because God had already given me. He'd give me the pot meal, that smell that drags you back through. And He'd instill some things in me that said, I got to take you somewhere. And you're not going to understand why you're going. And you're going to go through some things. And you may not even think that you're going to make it out. But I got a word for you. You're coming through. And I just want to say that God's house, our house. Is that right? I need to come into your living room. I need to come into your living room because a women's conference is just for that. It's for us to come together, and sometimes we get together and we're so excited and we're so, elated to be here, and we got the word going forth and we got the music playing, but we never really take a moment to just say, okay, this is my moment to rebuild. And you got so much on your mind. You're trying to plan Sunday dinner. You're trying to figure out what you're going to wear to work next week and what the kids doing while you're not around. And you never really grab hold of this moment for yourself. And see, if we're going to come to a women's conference, then we got to do what women do. We got to try and take a moment for ourselves because we don't get very many. So I need you to just say, well, sister, I don't know about you, but I'm going to get comfortable. And we spend so much time looking good and we're trying to look proper and we want everybody to see the strength in us, and sometimes we don't need the strength. And this is one of those times. We don't need to be strong, we don't need to look good, and we don't need anyone but us and the sister next to us to say, I know how you feel. We as women, we're so determined not to let anyone see our weakness. We spend so much time, we juggle everything. We juggle the money, we juggle the kids, we juggle the husband, we got the job. But nobody knows that sometimes you get to that point and you feel like, how am I going to make it? How am I going to get through this? And nobody knows that you're crying on the inside because you make it look so good on the outside. And I've been there. I've been through some things and I've done some things that I'll probably never be proud of. And I carried so much of the shame and the weight that God couldn't use me because I didn't think I was worthy. So if you don't think you're good enough, you'll never do a thing. If you don't think you can sing, you'll never sing. If you don't think you can do somebody's hair, you'll never try. And so there's a lot of things that I didn't think I could do. It was for you, but it wasn't for me. You ever feel like it could happen to that person, but it can't happen to you? And we walk around in that because we don't see ourselves as worthy. And one day I was particularly going through some things, and my husband, some of you may know him, he's from the Caribbean islands, so they come from a long family of storytellers. And he said, well, we weren't married at this time. And he said, well, what's wrong with you? And I said, I don't know. And I didn't know. And he said, well, let me tell you something. Caribbean voice that he uses. And he said, let me tell you a story. And I said, oh, Lord, he got a story for everything. And I said, well, honey, okay. If you got to tell me a story, tell me a story. And he said, well, it's the story of 3 men who were closest brothers. And he said, every morning they go out to the sea and they fish and they provide for their families and they come back and they share and they work together. And he said, one day they went out and the storm was rough and they were in a little canoe, wasn't much. And the boat overturned. And only one of the men could swim. And as he began to see the brothers who he loved so closely go down for the first and the second and the third time, they grabbed hold of him. And of course, he didn't want to push him off, but he had to save himself. And so he began fighting them and pushing them away, and he had to swim back to shore. And as he swam back, he kept looking back because he loved them. But there was nothing he could do. And he swam to the shore, and as he got to the shore, he sat there and he was out of breath, and he looked out and he saw that the men weren't going to make it. And as he looked around, he saw a huge log. And he grabbed the log and he pushed it back to the shore, and he pushed it back out in the water, and he swam, and he got it just close enough when he could grab it. And he said, grab hold of this. And as the men looked like they were going to go down for the last time, the arms just landed on him. And he took the strength he had and he swam back to shore. And when he got back to shore, he did all he could to revive him. He breathed in his chest and pushed in whatever he could to bring him back. And when the men came through, they lambasted him. That's an island word. They were angry. They let him have it because they said, how could you leave us? We thought you loved us. And he said, brother, I had to go and save myself so I could figure out how to come back and save you. And that's what I'm going to tell you today. That when I was doing something, God was preparing me so that I may strengthen somebody else. And so when I heard what the message was going to be today, and I was fellowshipping with Sister Regina, it was during the holidays, and I just come off a 3-year tour. And I said, oh, I'm taking a break. I'm tired. I'm done. I can't do anything. And Sister Regina said, ooh, you need to come to our women's conference. And I said, well, what's the word going to be? And then she said, well, it's women moving in the right direction for God. And I got excited because I said, well, okay. But then I got scared. Because when you're talking about moving in the right direction and then for God, how do you deliver a message like that? Because God is vast. He's not stuck in one direction. What it looks like on me is not what it looks like on you. And sometimes we forget that. We want to be just as strong as Sister Smith, and she's doing everything for the church and working a job and got a whole family, and that's not what God called you to do. And so we get caught in that, and we forget to take that breath and take that time to figure out, that's not my walk. And that's okay that it's not your walk, because again, God's not stuck in one direction. You know, and I said, okay, Lord, I can do that. I can do that. And he said, well, how you going to find a foundation for that? And I said, well, you made the trees. They sway back and forth. You made the ocean. It comes in and goes out. You even got the red snapper when it's spawning that swims upstream, while every other fish swim downstream. So God's not stuck in one direction. So I said, okay, that's good. And then it said moving in the right direction. Then it said for God. And sometimes we make a mistake because immediately when we think something is for God, we step off into the deep. And God's not in the deep. God's not in the deep. God operates in the small but miraculous. You know, and a lot of times we're looking for him to do something huge and spectacular, but he operates in the small but miraculous all throughout history. And I said, okay, Lord, give me some foundation. He said, well, you know, I took a woman named Harriet Tubman who was a slave, couldn't read, but she navigated her way back up north several times and saved several people. I took a 23-year-old and gave him enough word to lead the mission of a nation. A donkey, a baby, a snake. Everybody want to give the devil credit for the snake, but the devil don't get no credit for that. Because God, who knew you before you knew yourself, knew what Eve was going to do. So that was also God. And I said, okay, well, so what's the common denominator in all that, God? How does all that come together? And he said, well, everything I've done, although it may not appear to, but it has significance. And it may not have had significance in present day, because as you know, a lot of times things will happen after we're gone. We don't even know that we've touched someone's life until later they'll come back and say, you saved me. So God operates in the small but miraculous. And as I thought about it, I said, okay, well, what am I supposed to talk about then? He said, I want you to ask the ladies of the church, what does it take to make you feel significant? What are you going to? What are you aspiring to try and feel significant? And you got to really think about that. We're in the living room. We home, we comfortable, and we just us. Because sometimes when you're you're going on a journey. If you don't take the right stuff, you'll never be prepared when you get there. So you gotta ask yourself, what does it take to make me feel significant? And a lot of times that's different for everybody. You know, I think society has redefined what significance is. You know, we think it's the houses, we think it's the cars, we chasing the right man, light-skinned children, you know, just we just don't redefine what significance is. You know, but what God has designed is, as I like to look out the audience, and what I see is for the term holy moles. How many of you know what a mole is? It's a CIA or a government term. It's a secret agent who's been designed from the day of conception for just one thing. And usually go out and they lead their life and they do everything they're supposed to do, and that one call comes. And that's all they've been created for their whole life. And sometimes we're so tired that we miss that call. And we're just so caught up in trying to get everything right and get everything perfect that that day you were rushing to the salon trying to get to your appointment because you had something to do, and there was a little kid that was in front of you, and in your knower, you knew something was wrong, but you didn't have the time because you was late for your appointment. And I like to think sometimes that Lena Howard, and that was the woman who took me in when I was on the streets of New York, that she saw in my eyes that I wasn't going to make it another night through the winter because I was sick. And had she been too tired to hear God and say, you can come stay with us. Because she was a single mother of 4. And she let me in the door and she said, you can stay here as long as you abide by the rules. And I said, I could do that because I didn't have anywhere to go. But they didn't know that because, again, we can make it look so good on the outside. But she heard God. And so when you're rushing off and sometimes you're so busy trying to look significant, but your life is really insignificant because you're not doing the one thing that God called you here to do. Because we're always looking for the huge but spectacular. And so, you know, I can't get you out your seats. I don't want you to jump because I want you to get this. Because when you walk out this door and the music's not playing and you don't have anybody around to hug you, you have to be able to say small but spectacular. You know, because sometimes we don't feel that we've done as much as everyone else. Well, how'd she get the house? How'd she get the car? I know they promoted her again because you're looking at the huge and spectacular, but that's not where God abides. And so, as we sit here and we try to figure out what we're going to do this week and how we're going to do it, I want you to do like you do with your vacation. Plan for it. You don't go on vacation without your credit cards and your cash. You don't go without the right outfit. Well, plan for where God is going to take you. And don't be so tired that when you get there, you can't do the job He's called you to do. You know? So it's not the big things that I want you to focus on today, but I want you to ask yourself, what does it take to make me feel significant? And I can guarantee you it's not what God thinks. Because God may want you to go back and that relative who's on drugs, who you said you was going to help at first. And then he or she let you down 2 or 3 times, so you wash your hands of it. And that's what God meant for you to say. Said, I get tired with you. And you messing up. So how you going to wash your hands of somebody I think you were saved? You know, or even our own children now. I'm a youth advocate. That's what I do. I go out and I try and restore and save children because someone restored and saved me. But I see women so tired now that the children dropping out of school, they going off to work and leaving them laying on the couch. Because they're tired of yelling, they don't scream for the last time, and they just don't have enough energy to put into that. Well, that's what God called you to do. That's what God called you to do. What you send out your door is a representation of you. And sometimes we're just so tired. We're trying to do everything but the small and spectacular. Because we're trying to get there to get the huge, and that's not, again, where God resides. Well, you may find that your husband, who started out making you feel as though you can conquer the world, well, now he's tired. And you don't get that same energy or feeling from him. and you walk around and you don't notice the smile or the little things that he does because you're too tired. You just can't see it. And you have to ask yourself, is this the right man for me? And he is, because God put him with you, but you're too tired to recognize it. You think cutting the lawn or moving something for you, opening a jar is not anything, because you're looking for the huge and spectacular. And so when you do something, when you come into church and you come to a women's conference, take the time, take a deep breath, a cleansing breath. Matter of fact, take a deep breath, cleanse right now, and as you let go, think of all the things that you're thinking about and just let it out. And free your mind. Because if you can't hear God, then you'll never ever get where God's trying to get you to go. And so when the sisters start talking about walking in the right shoes and giving yourself, and I said, okay, Lord, that's a setup. Because my message is going to be about how you're too tired to go. And sometimes we don't even know we're tired. But we get by ourselves. You get by yourself and you take that moment and you realize that you're worn out. Mentally, physically. You're on fire for God, but you're worn out. So if God gave you a mission, you couldn't even do it because you're worried about everything else. And it was in those thoughts and in those words that I realized that everything that I thought I wasn't going to do, God was preparing me to do. So I got up and I started to talk to people. And and of course I didn't think I was doing anything because again, it wasn't huge and spectacular. And then the calls started coming from men who said, thank you so much for telling your story because it helped me save my marriage. I didn't know what my wife was going through. I didn't understand why she couldn't relate to me in a certain way. Or teenagers. I had a teenager come up to me and tell me that she was going to kill herself. And her father had given her a book that I'd written, and she thought she was the only one, and she couldn't tell anybody. And I said, well, thank you. And when she saw me, it scared me, because I was at an event, and she just started screaming and crying in the middle of the floor. And so I'm like, who's here? Who's here? And she ran up and she started hugging me, and she had joined the military. She'd become a youth advocate, and she changed her life because she realized that the things that she was carrying wasn't hers. We can't let people put things on us that's not ours. There's a lot of people I wish I had been smart enough to do more for, and that there's some I wish I hadn't done anything for. But I realize that you only know what you know at any given time. And a lot of times we look back and we hold hurt and we hold all against people. And I said, well, Lord, how can I forgive? And he said, well, if you only knew what you knew when you was messing up, they only knew what they knew when they were messing up. So if you can forgive yourself and realize it was a mistake, you got to look everybody else in the eye and give them that same thing. You have to. You have to. And when you learn to start seeing things through God's eyes, you don't judge. You know how we are as women. We say, ooh, them shoes. You're critical and you can see a bum on the street and it doesn't mean anything to you. But when you start seeing people through God's eyes, you smile. Even at the bum because you know he has a story. You're like, how you get to this point? And instead of not respecting where he is, you understand that there's something that brought him to that point. You can see the beauty in our elders. Because sometimes we look at our elders and we overlook them. And I like to get in their face, and I like to see the wrinkles and the creases because there's some story there. There's a life that's going on. And you can overlook all that. And so when you start seeing things through God's eyes, you realize that it's not the huge and spectacular that carries you through the day, but it's the small and the miraculous. And so when you go out and you go through your week and it looks like you're not getting any credit on your job, you say, whether they know that or not, that was small but miraculous. And that's where we got to reside. And I love everything that we do when we come together, but sometimes we come together to strengthen each other and we forget to do that. We don't relax. We don't let go of the outside world. Because you got to have somewhere where you can let it go. You have to. And we're better than a woman's conference. When you're supposed to be, this is for me. I'm taking this time and this day for me. But you come in here with the weight of everybody you know on you. So you failed to do the one thing you got up this morning to do. And so I just want to remind you of that. And I want you to be, thankful that when you walk out the door, that moment that you took for yourself strengthened you to go and give moments to someone else. Because that's actually what we do. And I want you to start loving on your family. And I know you're tired, because Lord knows I've been tired. I made the mistake of putting my little sister out when she was 17. I did the same thing to her my grandmother did to me, because again, I only knew what I knew to do. And that's one of the things that I just felt so bad about for a long time, because she wasn't ready to be out there. But she thought she was. And because she thought she was, I wanted to show her she wasn't. And that's not how we operate. And so now I look at her and she's a single mom of 4. And she's doing all she can to keep things going. And I wonder, if I hadn't been so tired, how could her life have been? And I just ask you, and I just beg you as women, to don't let yourself get so tired. Don't get so caught up that you're too tired to do the one job God has called you here to do. And I'm going to leave you with that, because I know you want to leave here and feel good, but I need you to be restored. I need you to be restored.
Let's give Sister Janice Sullivan a great hand of praise. Isn't it just like God? He knows just how to do it. He broke us so He could restore us. We couldn't have received that in that manner until He had broken us through the worship. What a God. Everything's with purpose. He's so calculating. He's so calculating. It is just so purpose-filled. Everything that He does and how He does it, it all matters. At the end of the day, it all matters. I was just sitting there going, wow. 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 And it went